Today, we're exploring the world of Rosie Asulin, an independent designer based in New York City. Stick around if you want to hear more about her untraditional story of becoming a fashion designer without going to fashion school. I think you'll like this one. You'll see me sketch 3 looks from her Fall/Winter 2020 collection. Before we get into her biography, here's a quick glance through her entire collection.
Turned 19 and I dropped out for a few months in my hometown. Cause I'm moving on to bigger and better things. Got a lot of low things, but I'm up now. Keep your head on straight, don't slow down. Cause I'm moving on to bigger and better things. We stay up too late, but we don't go out. My new friends are fake, they all talk too loud. I got one more year.
Although Rosie Asulin may not have her own Wikipedia page, her name is not unknown in Hollywood. You've probably seen her dresses at one point or another without realizing it. Rosie's passion has led her into creating effortless, sculptural clothes that has gone on to win the hearts of many, including celebrities. She's dressed celebrities such as Zendaya, Rihanna, Emilia Clarke, Katy Perry, Karlie Kloss, Kathryn Hahn, Solange Knowles, and many, many more. She even had one of her blouses featured in Beyoncé's Lemonade film. Rosie Asulin was born in the mid-80s in Brooklyn, New York, to a fashion-savvy family. Her great-great-grandparents manufactured and sold handkerchiefs, and her parents manufactured and licensed children's wear. I think the general public does not know how unglamorous fashion can be. There's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that go into the reality of making the business of fashion, more than people realize. Rosie has a great sense of humor, and she put it as, "It's like making the sausage and eating the sausage. You never want to see the sausage being made." What makes Rosie's background interesting is her insight into this unglamorous side since an early age. By the time Rosie turned 12, she began exploring more in her family's Brooklyn basement, going from sketching to draping. She would cut up and play with old blankets and leftover fabrics, and repurpose her mom's old clothes and jewelry from the 80s. When Rosie was around 14 years old, Rosie's grandmother Rose gave Rosie her old sewing machine after having seen Rosie's strong interest in making clothes. Grandma Rose had previously used the sewing machine to create dresses for Rosie's mom and aunt. The space to play and experiment nurtured Rosie's creativity. Grandma Rose influenced Rosie a lot. She taught her that showing up is important. Grandma Rose made sure to look presentable to others because she believed it showed consideration and respect to the people she came across during her day and to herself. As Rosie described it, this is the mentality of showing self-respect as a way of showing respect to others. Even on days Grandma Rose wore a sweatsuit, she would don scarves, earrings, makeup, and perfume. This comes across Rosie's collections, as Rosie believes in striking a balance between comfort and looking presentable. She wants her dresses to feel like a pair of sweatpants, as stated in an Elle magazine interview. Around the same age Rosie received her sewing machine, she had her first taste of the professional side of the fashion industry while attending a conservative yeshiva school. She began a 4-year internship at a jewelry company called Roxanne Asulin for Lee Angel. The last name is not a coincidence. Roxanne Asulin was to be her future mother-in-law. Max Asulin was her childhood friend and is now her husband. Max is also her current business partner, managing the numbers and business side of things, while Rosie focuses on the creative side. Today, her mother-in-law Roxanne has a successful jewelry line of her own. After graduating from high school, Rosie followed the college footsteps at first. She enrolled at the Fashion Institute of Technology to study fashion design. But after 4 months, she dropped out after realizing academia was not for her and decided to learn a different way. She began working under designers instead. Part of the reason why she decided to apprentice instead was because of her ADD. She needed to create her own path for learning because she did not do well in school. However, fast forwarding to today, she is able to hyper-focus on her own brand because she gets to create her own environment for herself and go after her vision. This just goes to show you that we all learn in different ways, and you need to figure out what works for you so you can create a successful path for yourself. Ask yourself, what is the best way for you to learn the skills necessary for you to achieve your goals? You need to do what works for you rather than do what others think is the normal way of doing things. That's how we get disruptors and shakers like Rosie Asulin. Rosie's mother-in-law, Roxanne, designed runway jewelry for Oscar de la Renta. This connection helped her to get an interview, and she landed an internship there. From Rosie's description, her experience at Oscar consisted of getting a lot of sandwiches, Xeroxing, organizing pens, and moving a lot of garment bags without knowing what was inside. But the most valuable experience she had while she was there was, well, being there. She recalls her experience. You're close and in the thick of everything. The fittings I learned from the most. There's a picture from Women's Wear Daily from 10 years ago, and I'm in there with Mr. De La Renta holding the pins. Rosie spent almost 2 years at this internship, observing how a fashion collection is made from concept to sketch, to muslin to garment, at an atelier that had the capability to do everything under one roof. Rosie describes it as magical. Even if you see the toil and sweat, it's magical. You see these bolts of couture fabrics, ruffles being hand-sewn, and embroidery spilling out all over the room. You can't get it out of your head. Rosie expresses her admiration for Oscar's 50-year-long career in the Washington Post article. You look at fashion and sometimes your work is on trend. Sometimes it's not. If you're in it long enough, you see it circle back. For him, it wasn't always about magazine editorials and crowded fashion shows, but he was loyal to his women. After Oscar de la Renta, Rosie went on to informally work with Brian Reyes. I'm not sure what context informal meant in the Washington Post interview, but I'm guessing it means working for free, as she has mentioned before in an Elle interview that her prior work experiences and internships were unpaid. Her work experiences are basically apprenticeships. Rosie met Brian Reyes while she was interning at Oscar de la Renta, and Brian Reyes was launching his own brand. A quick background on Brian Reyes. The Miami native moved to New York at the age of 17 to pursue a career in fashion. He began his career as an assistant designer at Ralph Lauren, then as a menswear collection designer at Michael Kors, and then as a designer at Oscar de la Renta, before launching his own namesake label. Although he retired his brand in 2011 after 6 years, he has went on to work as a consultant for many brands like J. Crew, Stella McCartney, and DKNY, as well as Vice President of Design at Calvin Klein. Brian appears to have not gone to fashion school as well. So back to Rosie. After working for Brian, Rosie moved to Paris for a year to work at Lanvin's design studio when Albert Elbaz was the creative director. After that, Rosie did event planning for a year before she created her namesake label that we know today. For many people, starting a fashion brand may seem daunting. In a fashionista interview, Rosie describes herself as being just as terrified as anyone else when she started her own brand. She discloses how she never actually stopped feeling that way and still feels that way when it comes to new things. While her friends and family encouraged her to pursue her dreams, Rosie knew it was something she was truly meant to do because she could not get it out of her system. She knew that she would not feel fulfilled doing anything else. Rosie's recommendation for budding designers is to go for it if you can't let go of this dream of yours. And once you're ready to start, she suggests to kill the dream in order to be successful. What she means by that is to kill any expectations of how you think it will go. You cannot start a business and expect to have unlimited resources to do exactly what you envision. There will be compromises and sacrifices as you run your own clothing brand, even when you've found success. Rosie describes how, as a designer, she needs to prioritize things because of time and money. Rosie said in a Goop interview, "I had to get the fantasy out of my way and say, you can't have any of that. Now, let's begin." That's hard, and it still happens today. It's like, wait, why can't I have 20 SKUs and then choose the top one? No, you get 3 shots, and they all have to work because you don't have the budget to do the other one. So, it's challenging, and while it might sound romantic, it's not. It's not glamorous, but it's rewarding in its own way, and we're very lucky and privileged that we even get to do it. There are plenty of extremely talented people who are probably dying to get the chance to make their pieces a reality. I feel lucky and I appreciate every day. In late 2012, Rosie launched her first collection, which was for Resort 2014. Brands work a year to a year and a half in advance for each collection. Rosie says she chose to start with Resort first because it spends the most time on the floor. I think if you look at some of her first pieces from 2014, then see her collection a year later in spring 2015, and then look at pieces from her recent collections, you'll see how far she has come. It's incredible to see the progression of a young, independent designer. Also worth mentioning is the great support network of friends that Rosie has, namely Leandra Medine Cohen and Claire Distenfeld. The 3 of them are close friends and are pictured together pretty often. I think Claire and Leandra are considered socialites, like the world you may associate with from Gossip Girl. XOXO. Leandra Medine Cohen is the founder of the Man Repeller blog turned publication, and she helped to publicize both the brands of Rosie Asulin and Roxanne Asulin. And Claire Distenfeld is the founder of 5 Story, an avant-garde boutique located in the Upper East Side. She sold Rosie's garments in her boutique. P.S. As I'm making this video, I learned that Leandra shut down Man Repeller completely a few days ago this month in October due to financial constraints. And Claire sold 5 Story back in November 2019 to Karen Murray. All of this brings me to the title of the video. How do you become a fashion designer without fashion school? First, ask yourself why you're seeking a different route than going to fashion school. Is it because of financial reasons? Is it because you want to get a head start while you're in high school? Is it because you're starting again after having been in a different industry altogether? I think these are important questions to ask as someone who has gone to both business school and fashion school. I think fashion school can be looked at like a vocational or trade school. I highly recommend it for most people as it can be like a creative incubator before entering the industry. So, if you think school is not for you, the alternative to attending a fashion school is to learn the same knowledge a different way, by gaining experience in the fashion industry. It's actually not uncommon to find many famous fashion designers without a fashion school background. Giorgio Armani studied medicine, Ralph Lauren was a tie salesman, Terry Mugler was a classically trained dancer and studied interior design before becoming a fashion designer, and then quit to become a bodybuilder. As long as you're thirsty to learn more and you work hard, you can create anything. The whole point of going to school is to learn the skills you will need in order to do your job. But for some folks, it's easier to learn on the job. Some have the natural talent to dive into it from the beginning. Some are able to carry over their skills from a different area of expertise. It all depends. I'd also like to point out that the whole point of going to college is to learn and to pursue what we want to do in our professional lives. We never stop learning even after graduating college. It just doesn't stop there. There's always something to learn even when you're older. As an artist and problem solver of clothes, I think this is the most exciting part. This is something I've been thinking about recently, the concept of being a perpetual student, a term I saw from psychologist Adam Grant, a Harvard grad and Wharton professor. And as musician Jacob Collier best put it, though we will never know everything or come close to it, how wonderful is the thought of growing older and acquiring more knowledge, having more access to things you can pull from your mind to create more and better things. If I put myself in Rosie's shoes, I think the path Rosie took makes sense considering she had already learned basic knowledge during her childhood and had the ability to work in New York City for designers because of her connections and family. Of course, not all of us have this available to us, but Rosie did not let it go to waste. She worked hard and was able to make the available resources work for her. If you don't have connections and resources like Rosie did, I think the best way to get your foot in the door is by making a portfolio to show designers. It should demonstrate that you have a good knowledge of what fashion college students would know. It should also reflect similar style as the brand you're interviewing for. For example, it would be weird if Rick Owens applied to work for Carolina Herrera. I could go into more depth, but that would make this video twice as long, so that's for another day. My last word of advice would be to make sure that you're not getting taken advantage of, meaning don't let mean brands and designers steal your work, especially during interviews, because that happens. And make sure they value your labor and pay you. You may be an intern, but you are still doing work that would otherwise not be done for free if you weren't around to do it at all. And by getting paid, you're setting an industry standard for future interns to get paid as well. Finally, let's end on what's going on in Rosie's world today. Due to COVID, she was not able to launch this fall 2020 collection that I'm painting at a press cocktail party in Paris at Hotel Le Marois as planned. Rosie describes her collection as having 3 capsules. Knit and outerwear are new categories for Rosie. She designed a lot of plaids and heavy wools that, as Vogue put it, blurred the lines between jacket and dress. As for her florals, she used silk petal daisies with velvet buttons to turn the skirt of a lemon dress into a 3D garden. And for evening wear, Rosie wanted to keep it dramatic and simple at the same time. A great example of that is the Schiaparelli pink satin dress with a plain cotton ruffle cascading out at the hem. There are many other creative projects Rosie O'Sulin has also taken under her wing. She not only has her Rosie O'Sulin line, but also a line called By Any Other Name. In April 2019, it was debuted with her husband Max as CEO. It's meant to be a standalone brand without any association to Rosie's original namesake label. It's described as a take on the luxury appeal, working it into everyday wardrobe staples. I think it's for people who like to wear basic pieces but want a subtle but effective modern twist with the quality of luxury. It's clothes that is meant to be worn to work or to meet up with friends, since not everyone wears over-the-top lace blouses and silk dresses on a constant basis. It kinda looks like what a Rosie O'Sulin customer would wear if she wasn't at a gala. The collection first launched at retailers Nordstrom, Saks Fifth Avenue, and Moda Operandi, with 15 pieces featuring shirt, dresses, blazers, trousers, and more, priced from $595 to $1,295. Also, just this month in October, Rosie and other designers collaborated with Hyundai and introduced a sustainable fashion line made out of upcycled car parts, with proceeds going towards the Institute of Positive Fashion, a research-based organization devoted to helping fashion labels become more sustainable. Subscribe, hit the bell, and all the rest. Comment what you would like to see next, but most importantly, I hope you're well and you have a great day. Okay, till next time, bye!
19, but I don't give up, 'cause I'm finding